Warning. Listening to this show may result in increased levels of inspiration, motivation, and innovation. Side effects can include the immediate urge to take massive action to build a better business and life for yourself and others. You've been warned. Welcome to Influencers Radio with your host, Jack Mize.
And we are back on Influencers Radio, and today I have to say that we have an influencer in the true sense of the word, and I think I'm almost going to have to come up with a different word for our guest today. We have Jim Smyth. Now, I'm going to tell you that you need to turn up the volume, clear your head of anything you've thought about. If you are in the digital marketing space, I'm talking about if you do anything online, if you are a coach, if you are a speaker, if you are an author, if you are an infopreneur that generates income from digital, whether it's digital sales, whether it's your email list, whether it is products, you do not want to miss one word of this. Jim is an attorney. And that's just the beginning. He is a pioneer, and I don't use that word lightly because I can't think of an even bigger word for it. Pioneer in tax, asset protection, and legacy planning for digital marketers and the digital marketing age. And we're going to find out what exactly that entails. Jim, welcome to Influencers Radio.
Thanks, Jack. Good to be here.
Well, you know, I got to say, this is one of this is a show that I've been really excited about getting into because it's something, this is truly kind of breaking new ground in what digital marketers and people in the info marketing space have even conceived of. And to me, you are the guy that, you know, is putting your first foot on the moon, that is planting that flag on the moon and covering ground that no one's covered before. And it's really because we're living in a unique age. The digital marketing age is so young in its infancy. But there's so many opportunities and obstacles that folks are facing for the first time. There is no reference. You know, so many of it's, there's no precedent to go back to look at. Right. What exactly is it? How did you get here? What made you go and into this arena and see this opportunity and see these obstacles and decide that you're going to be the guy to tackle them?
Well, about 2009, I had a client found me who was very successful in the digital marketing space and was making significant amounts of money. And he came to me, and I started doing some planning with him. And then he had an opportunity to buy a building because the economy was suffering at that time. And so he could buy a building in a town near me that appraised for $2.5 million, and he could buy it for just $1 million cash, which he had. And he looked at it, the appraisal was there, he could increase his equity by $1.5 million, and he declined to buy it. And I asked him, why did he decline to buy it? He said, if I take that $1 million and I put it into the digital marketing space, I can make much more with it than I could make if I buy that building. And if I buy the building, I've got hassles. I've got to make sure it's rented. If it's not heated or whatever, I've got to deal with management companies. And so why should I do that? Why don't I just keep my assets liquid and stay in the digital marketing space that I know? And for me, that immediately showed that we were in a new age. It woke me up to the fact that virtual real estate, websites, and all that's connected with them is a different form of real estate. And it's one that has or should have similar treatments in many respects, capital gains, treatment, licensing treatment. It should have many different treatments consistent with commercial real estate and residential real estate, but that are completely unrecognized by professionals who grew up in a different paradigm where it didn't exist. And income earned in the digital space was purely earned income. So that I said, boy, the world has changed. How to invest money is now dramatically different, and I need to become expert in this.
Well, you brought up some points that really hit home to me. For one, how it got mixed up in the textbooks, but something as granular, as local as my county tax assessor, I got something in the mail that said I had to come in for a hearing because I had not paid property tax on a website. They didn't know what it was or how, and I sat in that hearing, and it was like we spoke two different languages of them understanding, because they didn't understand that .com on the end meant a website. They thought this is a business. And I think when it's a possible element of a business. It's a website. Well, no, that was the name on the front of the door of the office that we saw it on. You got to pay property taxes on it. And there was no communicating with them over what that is. Absolutely no way to do that. But you're right. There's so many people that are in this that they have no map. They're not even treating it like a business. They don't even know what structure. Do I go into a corporation? Am I LLC? And they have found attorneys that at least are progressive enough to kind of understand what they're doing and put that in. But you go so granular as to understand the types of digital assets, because attorneys they understand, okay, you make money online, but they don't actually connect the dots of a website being an asset, of an email list being an asset within itself. Right. And when we talk about assets, these are things that you can pass on to your family as we go on. A lot of people haven't thought about that, because it occurred to me the other day, we're living right now probably in the time that the very second generation of digital marketers are coming on, where kids are coming on that they can possibly move in or take over family business. And the consequences of exchanging businesses or passing on even through death or legacy has tremendous impact on the decisions you make. So what I want to kind of get from you is helping people identify what an asset is, an info product, a email list, something like that. What are the different ways that can be looked at from a tax and asset planning standpoint?
Well, most people are treating the income that is earned from the sale of products and from the sale of and from promotion of other people's products. Most people are treating all of that as earned income, ordinary earned income. And they're really not looking at, okay, what's that comprised of? What element in there is an email list? What element in there is a licensing fee? What might be rent of a list? And where is it owned? So, for example, am I going to own it inside this business? Is it possible to grow and own the same kind of an asset inside of a Roth IRA or inside of an LLC that's in a Roth IRA? And the answer, of course, is yes. So the question is, okay, what are the terms of the agreement, and if it can be categorized as rents, royalties, licenses, capital assets, then it's passive income. It's not active earned income,
which has a much different tax ramifications.
Totally different tax environment, and tools all of a sudden begin to become available that weren't available where it was earned income.
So let's take, for example, get some specifics. A lot of people have an email list, right? And they'll use that email list to communicate with their following, the people that have subscribed to them. But they'll also use that email list to perhaps promote a product or a tool from someone else in which they receive an affiliate commission.
Yep.
Now, most people have just thought of that as a given. That's earned income. I get a 1099 at the end of the year. That's income. But from what we talked about earlier, that you can actually grow a list inside of an IRA or a Roth IRA, and have all of that revenue or money. I don't even call it income, but that money could possibly go directly back to that IRA or that Roth IRA for that benefit. And you could actually grow retirement from an email list that is going in there tax-free or tax deferred is what you're saying, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's important that you not be working inside of the IRA, but if what you're essentially doing is that's owning a passive asset, and it's going to use that passive asset, and there's money that comes for the use of that passive asset, that's totally legitimate. Right.
So you're saying, like, if an LLC owns an email list,
yep,
and that LLC can actually be an asset inside an IRA or Roth IRA,
and rent it to a third party,
and yes, so they do those affiliate, and that's pretty much that goes back. Now, it's important to make a distinction. You can't decide whether you use that money outside or inside. That has to all go back to that. You have to separate that from yourself.
Correct.
But that's all. But that's a way that people can certainly just defer.
If it's excess income, then it's not going to be at the top line taxed at 50%. Let's say between federal and state taxes.
So, okay. And so let's go another way. Let's say you don't put it inside an IRA, or you're not putting it for tax deferred. Let's say that you, rather than treating it as income, you suggest that there's a potential that could be treated as royalty income rather than earned income.
Yeah. Well, depending on the particular asset, royalty income, licensing income, rental income.
And what's the difference in the tax ramifications of that?
Well, what's important is it's passive income. And so it's not subject to Social Security taxes, for example. It is over a certain amount, subject to the Obamacare 3.8%, as are dividends, et cetera. But it is significantly, the fact that it's passive income means that if you invested in some stock and you had a massive loss, then all of a sudden this passive income can now apply against your massive loss that's sitting on your balance sheet that you're only using at $3,000 a year.
Right.
Right. So, and a lot of people have these massive losses just from what happened 5 years ago or 4 years ago, and they haven't been able to use them. Or they got into some real estate and it wasn't such a good deal, and they got out and they had a loss, or they were upside down in their house and they took a loss, and they just can't take that loss against their earned income, only $3,000 per year, but they can take it against any passive income.
Now, here's something. This sounds like it's ideal, and there's such a huge opportunity for someone that is starting something from scratch. There's a lot of people out there that have grown their business organically and has been day-to-day decisions, and now they find themselves kind of in a hodgepodge or a mess of what their business structure is, or who owns what asset, or anything like that. How difficult it is to untangle that and assign these different assets to different structures to be able to get the full benefit out of what's available.
Simple to do, because it is there. So every circumstance is different, of course, but you've got whatever the email list. It's just you have to be particularly careful when dealing with IRAs, because of the self-dealing rules, because of the possibility that the IRS can always come back later and they can say, well, some asset that you took from outside and you put it inside and you made a massive amount of money with, well, it had some enormous value. So that can be a little bit more complex. Of course, if the money that's inside the IRA, if the IRA buys a list from a third party that's unrelated to you, and then leases it out from there, then that's a different situation.
But even if it's not an IRA, if you just have this one, you're doing this business out of your own name, or maybe one LLC and you're doing everything from digital products to your email list to everything else.
Yep.
There's a way that you could go in and restructure that to where I'm going to put my digital products in this LLC, or I'm going to put my earned income assets into this LLC, but I'm going to move these
other assets in other places, and then you can split ownership there, and really make it strong from an asset protection standpoint versus your own personal assets. And a lot of times, guys, I mean, they work, and women work their butts off just trying to build assets. They get to the end of the year, and then they find out that what they thought was their savings account is their tax holding account that's got to go out. And there are ways to both significantly reduce the tax consequences that are there in a completely legal way, while at the same time providing much better asset protection, so that if you get sued, what your creditors will get is some charging order against an LLC or a partnership that you own, so that if they insist on taking ownership to that, you can generate income inside of it and not make distributions sufficient to cover their taxes, or not make distributions at all. And then your creditors get phantom income, and they've got to come out of pocket with their own money. So it makes creditors go away from those assets that you build over time, that you put your years and expertise and blood, sweat, and tears into.
Right. And so, I want to go back to one of the opportunities, we talked about as well as building an IRA, building up retirement. And there's so many different types of IRAs and plans. There's plans where you can put, kids' college money in. There's plans that you can healthcare, all this stuff that you can do. And most people, when they think of IRA, Roth IRA, they're thinking mutual funds, stock market, how does one go about putting their email list in an IRA, right? So what are some general options for that? Yeah,
you make it a self-directed account. It's usually safer to make sure, instead of just using a Roth IRA, you use a 401k Roth IRA, because the consequences of making a mistake are substantially smaller. The penalties of making a mistake and so you can be in the section that's got Roth treatment, but the penalty consequences, if you slip up, are dramatically less. And then, but the upside remains just as great. So, so with that, then when you put it in, if you're going to put a list in and you think that list is going to make some serious money, I'd have an appraisal done of the value of that list ahead of time. And if you're contributing more than you should be contributing from a value standpoint, then you might have to pay a penalty, and there's a point at which you can get rid of that penalty, and there's a certain way to do it.
So you're saying is establish a basis for that list when you put it in from a third party, so you have that documented.
That's right. But you always are subject to the risk that the IRS could come back later and challenge that.
Yeah.
So the safer way to do it is that, Jack, can I buy your list in my Roth IRA? And so I'll buy your list, and your list might be 80% the same as mine.
No, I got you.
But the fact that I'm buying it from a third party, and I'm paying, it'd be good when I'm doing that it's not $1 to be reasonable in what the price is, and or have it supported by an appraisal, and then have at it. Then if you want to enter into joint venture arrangements where you're not going to put a lot of active work, but it's mostly going to be your list that's working for you, it's now working in a passive environment.
Yeah, and there's certainly a lot to navigate, and I think that's one of the reasons that you are the go-to guy for this and a pioneer in this. And what I want to really make clear to folks is these aren't loopholes. These aren't some kind of ninja tactics. This is you understanding the guidelines that the IRS and the government puts out there, and you're working within those guidelines with something that's not understood by so many, which is our digital assets. And so I just want to make that very clear that this isn't you see things out there where people say, oh, you don't have to pay taxes. The Constitution says that, this isn't any kind of loophole, kind of weird thing. This is just you understanding that classification of things that just haven't been documented before or understood before, such as digital assets, and putting it into the guidelines and the structure that the IRS and the government allows freely for people to use.
That's exactly right. And so it's a paradigm that very few have thought about. It's kind of on the legacy side of things. It's kind of the difference between financial capital and human capital. Well, the real wealth in any family is the human capital. It's not the money. It's the human capital. The whole purpose of the financial assets are to take care of the human capital. And yet that almost never really gets capitalized, built, and properly, if you will, readied for the financial assets that are likely to come.
Yeah, this is just,
Just another.
we could spend 2 days on this stuff because this stuff, we could just unfold opportunity after opportunity that I think has just been completely neglected, ignored, or just not even realized that exist for people in the digital marketers. When we say digital marketers, like I said at the beginning, info product creators, people that, affiliate marketers with lists, people that do software as a service, people even that create the next big thing like a Dropbox or something may not realize how that money can be classified and what a huge impact on what they actually put in their pocket and what actually is left for their family for generations can be based on what seemingly might be just a quick decision that they make.
And when you get finished working and you just want to go to the beach and leave it alone, oftentimes what happens is the guys turn around, they sell the business, and they're going to have a big tax bill, but they don't realize what the size of the business is. Well, when you've used these different kinds of structures, then you're selling the assets from those different structures, and you're protecting the money, both from a tax perspective and from an asset protection standpoint, in those structures, in ways that are appropriate to what you've set up. So it's a much more powerful way to then move on to the next thing and secure what you've built.
Yeah, this is really, really just incredibly powerful stuff. You're clearly an influencer, not just influencing the people that you're working with, but, their families and their legacy and generations and beyond. One of the things I like to find out is what influences the influencer. What is it that inspires you, influences you to do what you do, and that finds its way into the work that you do for your clients?
Well, thanks for asking. My grandfather was at one time the wealthiest guy in the state of Maryland. He'd be a multi-billionaire today. And he had 13 kids. My mom was the oldest, and I'm the oldest of about 50 grandchildren. And when my grandparents were passing, and they were extremely philanthropic family and very, very close and very prayerful and one of those kind of high-profile families. And when my grandmother passed away, after my grandfather had passed away, some of the family members sued some of the other family members when everything was going to charity. And when I looked at the situation, I was already practicing law, was doing a lot of estate planning and advanced coordinated income and estate tax planning. I saw that the plan was done by one of the largest law firms in Maryland and was absolutely a perfect technical plan and a fully funded living trust. But that didn't stop the lawsuits. That didn't stop brothers and sisters from not talking to each other anymore. That didn't stop strained custom relationships or the scandal in the family. And I got to asking myself, because I was already doing a lot of sophisticated planning, this is a perfect plan. Why did it go wrong? And what I learned was that actually the statistics are that 70% of estate plans fail. Failure being defined as the heirs are involuntarily parted from their wealth. So we work all our lives to give whatever we're able to accumulate, big or small, to our kids and our grandkids. And too often, because there's a lack of any focus whatsoever in the planning process on the human capital and what is it to successfully transition wealth from one generation to the next. Too often we get blindsided by the lack of air preparedness, the lack of family preparedness, the lack of appreciation for what's really important and where our own gaps are. And so that really got me committed starting about 12 years ago, 2002, it really got me deeply committed to understanding what is it that those few families, there are a few families as a percentage, less than 0.1%, that successfully transition wealth 4 generations or more. what do they do? And so I like to incorporate that into the planning. And interestingly, one of the things I've discovered is that the way the tax code is set up, it actually favors the ability for people, if they take that long-term perspective, it favors the ability for non-business reasons to put up extremely effective tax structures.
That right there is just gold. One, just to hear the story about how this originated and what brought you into this, but also it kind of shines a different light on, the villainization of the IRS. Not that I'm saying that I'm its buddy, but the fact that they do have the provisions in there that could be very, very favorable to families, and just a lot of people don't realize it's there or don't look at it in the way that it's meant to be used.
Mitt Romney knows them, and Warren Buffett knows them, but very, very few people do.
Yeah, that's extremely powerful. How could people find out more? I know you do this, and I can guarantee you there's people that are in the digital marketing space. They're selling products. They're doing affiliate. Where can they find out more about you and how to contact you? And this really it can be a huge difference in their income, what they put in their pocket, and what they build for their assets. So how do we find that?
Well, if they go to the website, my website, familytrust.com/digital assets.
All right, familytrust.com /digital asset. I'll say that again since I flubbed it up. Familytrust.com /digital assets. We'll also have that on the page where people can listen to this, and everywhere that we have this syndicated to, because I think it's just so important for people to take a look at this if they're making any kind of income, and particularly if they're paying any kind of taxes based on income from digital assets. Then this is something that you absolutely must consider and look into. Jim, influencer, I'm going to have to come up with a different word. I want to thank you for being here today with us.
Thank you.
All right.
Be with you, Jack.
Folks, check this out. And I cannot emphasize it enough. This can really change not only your business, but also your lifestyle and the lifestyle for your generations to come. So until next time, remember, you are the only real game changer.
You've been listening to Influencers Radio. To get all past shows and updates on future shows, visit influencersradio.com today or follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/influencersradio.